Hey, everybody. This is The Smoke Break, and I am your host, Joe Johnson, owner of PurplePTSD.com, Vikings Territory.com, and PurpleTerritoryRadio.com. This is the first episode of The Smoke Break that is part of the Big Heads Media Network. All of our shows are now a part of the Big Heads Media Network. That includes Morning Joe's, this show, The Smoke Break, about the labor, with Kirby, Sean, and Nick Olson. Load the Box with the Jordan and Jack, and a couple more. So you will still find those shows everywhere that you're used to. Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, so on and so forth. They'll just have a little bit promotion. And I will say skull right back at you to Skull Vikings stream. Thanks for tuning in. But today is a little bit faster of a show. Kickoff is in 10 minutes on the schedule, which means that they'll hopefully kick off by 6 p.m. It seems like they're dragging those times longer and longer. So let's just get right into it. Actually, before we do that, I wanted to mention that we are sponsoring and co-hosting a Grey Duck vodka bottle signing this Friday at McDonald's Liquor in South Minneapolis. McDonald's Liquors is on 34th Avenue, actually 51st and 34th Avenue by Lake Nokomis. Chad Greenway will be there signing Grey Duck vodka bottles and one item per person. It's free to go. There's going to be a silent auction with some amazing Vikings memorabilia courtesy of Total Sports Enterprises, which is a big sponsor of our show. There'll be some beer to taste, some Grey Duck vodka to taste, and some wine to taste. So you can go on to our Facebook, Grey Duck Vodka's Facebook, or McDonald's Liquor's Facebook to RSVP. You don't necessarily need to RSVP, but that would be very helpful. Starts at 5, should go till about 6:30. Will be a really fun time. I'll be there. A few of our writers will be there, and obviously Chad Greenway will be there, which is almost as big of a draw as seeing me in person. But this game is huge. It's really, really big. Obviously, it's a division game. The Vikings are 0-1 in the division. Unfortunately, they shouldn't be, but they are, and so that's why you really want to win games like the Packers game, because it becomes increasingly important to win other games that looking at the schedule before the season seemed a little bit more difficult than I think it seems now. The Bears have struggled. They did beat the Redskins, but the Redskins aren't very good. So we will see. I as anyone that isn't into football as much as you guys are that are watching this show, because you have to be a pretty big fan to be watching this show. This is pretty deep into Vikings online fandom. As I do, that the Vikings struggle when they go to Chicago. And Chad Greenway will actually be on my podcast, and Joe Oberle's podcast, Morning Joe's, this Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning. We'll record that live. But he said something to me that I thought was amazing. The last time he was on the show, which also coincidentally was after a Bears game, and it was after the loss in Chicago last year. And he, I expected him to have a football answer, like, well, it's a tough division game, a lot of platitudes, a lot of cliches, which I just realized I use some of those, so I suck. But he literally said, as a player, when we go to Chicago, we know that we're going to fuck it up. It's in the back of our minds. We talk about it, and that really, I really appreciated his honesty, and I also really realized that he was retired at that point, because that doesn't sound like a Chad Greenway that's currently playing answer. And that scares me, not just a little bit, but a lot for this game. They do know how things go in Chicago. This team is predicated right now, especially on speed on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense. Dalvin Cook is blazingly fast. He makes a lot of cuts. He's used to playing on turf. And so it would not surprise me one bit if Chicago let the grass grow a little bit longer and is really trying to make this more of an old school game. That having been said, the reports are that Akeem Nicks is not going to play today, which is huge for the Vikings' chances, especially as Josh Klein on the other team, our team, is not going to be playing because of his concussion. I've said this a few times on this show and other shows, that there's the one player in the NFL that scares the ever-loving shit out of me, and that player is obviously Mitchell Trubisky. I'm totally kidding. It's Khalil Mack. He is a force, and he's shown that time in and time out. He's shown that against the Vikings. I mean, he's just able to dictate the flow of the game and disrupt at a level that really not a lot of other people can. I do think if the Vikings were to run the style of defense that the Bears did, Barr would be on that level, probably a little bit less. But the Vikings want Barr to do more, and he does do that. But the key to this game is going to come down to Khalil Mack and kind of, in addition to that, the turnovers that he is able to generate, that the Bears defense is able to generate. They had 5 turnovers last week against the Redskins. So the Vikings need to take care of the ball. Looking at Cousins' game against the Packers and the turnovers that he was responsible for, he was responsible for 3, but it very well could have been 5. Kind of on paper anyway. Before his fumble, he fumbled the play right before that when he dove headfirst as opposed to sliding when he was picking up that first down with his legs. So I do worry about his ability to hold on to the football, his ability to make decisions that are not conscious, they're almost like reflexes or instincts. When he panics, he makes weird decisions. The throw, the first and goal from the 8 Packers interception that's been dissected left and right, that wasn't, to me, a conscious thought. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you were to ask him about that, I don't think he would really know why he did it that way. It's like an innate panic move. As a Kirk Cousins defender, as one of the people that really wanted him to come to the Vikings, I was aware that he was not good under pressure. I did think they would bolster the offensive line before last season, and that would mitigate some of those issues. And so, the reason that I was really jumping up the bandwagon, if you want to call it that, after the Packers game was that they've done just that, and he was playing worse than he did at least to start the season last year. He was on fire to start the season last year. The defense wasn't doing him any favors. There was no run game. He has a run game. The defense is arguably having the best start under Zimmer that it's had to start a season. And he, against the Packers or in that third preseason game, is either making horrible decisions, or when he's making the right decisions, he was not making the throws. Now, a lot of people, I had somebody come in to McDonald's Liquor plug I talked to after the Packers game. He's a Lions fan, and he came up to me after the Packers game and gave me a bunch of shit. And then he came up to me yesterday, and he goes, "It looks like you were wrong about your quarterback." And I don't really see that. They clearly weren't relying on Cousins to beat the Raiders. The run game was doing its thing. He was making, outside of that touchdown to Thielen, he was making a lot of really short throws, Sam Bradford level throws back when he was breaking the completion record. A lot of screens, running back screens, tight end screens. So my concern today is, or the reality of this game is that the Bears are going to really focus on shutting down Dalvin Cook, not allowing him to get to 100 yards for the 4th game in a row, and they're going to force Cousins to beat them through the air. Luckily, there's been a few games where Diggs has done really well against the Bears, and in ways that under Teddy, if you guys remember. I went to 7 of the 8 home games the last year they were in TCF Bank Stadium, and a lot of the throws were these little button hooks on both sides of the field. The receiver would run and do a little curl, catch the ball, first down. And there was the one where Diggs, and I posted this in my article about why trading Diggs was a terrible idea just like 1 or 2 days ago on Vikings territory. But he broke off the corner that was trying to tackle him and ran it in for a touchdown to tie the game or to go ahead by 1 late in that game. Perhaps that's something that they need to do with Cousins until he builds his confidence back up. short, young Teddy Bridgewater-esque throws, maybe less down the field stuff, less difficult in stride slot type stuff. Because this game really is going to come down to turnovers, and while the Vikings have six turnovers in 3 games, and thus if I have my old school calculator, they're averaging 2 a game. But the Bears are coming off a game in which they had 5. So that scares me a little bit. I think, and Deshaun Vaughn wrote a great article on keys to beating the Bears on Purple PTSD yesterday. And a lot of it comes down to confusing the Bears linebackers or taking advantage of their speed and their aggressiveness. When they're on and they make the right gamble on what the play is, they're really hard to beat. And so, especially with the fact that they're going to be attempting to shut down Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison, doing play actions or trick play, not necessarily trick plays on the level of flea flickers or anything, but disguising coverages and changing plays at the line will be really important, because you want to get those linebackers to bite and take advantage of it that way. But really, it's going to come down to holding on to the ball on offense, and then on defense, taking the quote from, what was his name? The Packers player, Tramon Williams. After the first week after the Bears lost to the Packers, he said that we knew if we could force Trubisky to play quarterback that we would win. That's clearly been the game plan the first 3 games for the teams that the Bears have played. The Redskins, the Bears, and I have it written down somewhere, the Broncos. There it is. And so, while that's obvious, that's given Nagy and company the opportunity to find ways perhaps to overcome that. So, as we've seen, Trubisky, when he runs, or any running quarterback against the Vikings, that's really been the Achilles heel of this defense. And so that isn't breaking news. How they do that, there's a bunch of ways they could do it. Keeping a spy on him, scheming for it, having Anthony Barr break his knee. If they can keep him in the pocket, though, I think they'll be fine. That was one of the reasons I don't understand everyone wanting Jalen Ramsey so bad, because this defense has looked great, elite even. Outside of that one quarter with the Packers, they're allowing under 9 points a game, the defense. So adding Jalen Ramsey, would be an improvement, yes, but for trading Diggs and something else, if they want, as a minimum, 2 first-round picks, I've heard they want more than that. You're not just going to give them Diggs and call it a day. They're going to ask for more. And then, you could throw in one of the 2 starting corners, Xavier Rhodes or Trey Waynes, maybe Trey Waynes, because his contract is up after the season. But, this defense is playing really, really well, again, outside of that first quarter with the Packers. So it's, really in predicting the score. We did that on Morning Joe's this week. I believe mine was 14-13. Vikings win. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I think it'll be an old-school black and blue division type game. That having been said, they'll probably come out and score 5 touchdowns in the first quarter, since that seems to be my luck. But I do think the Vikings should win this game. I think they will pull it out. I think the Bears aren't the Bears of last year, at least yet. And I think that the Vikings will be able to turn the ball over themselves a few times from Trubisky. He's thrown 2 picks this season. Both were in the red zone. That's a killer to teams, and hopefully the Vikings will keep that up. So I'm cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, the Raiders game for Cousins wasn't like, oh, don't worry about the Packers, because look at what he did against the Raiders. The Raiders are in disarray, and they limited what he was doing. So hopefully they'll be able to establish the run game. Klein being out scares me, though, a little bit, or a lot of it. So we'll see what happens. I'll be back at halftime to talk to you guys. I appreciate everyone tuning in. I'm actually going to be buying a fancier camera this week. Even though it looks okay on my screen, I think it's because it's divided between multiple platforms. It might be a little bit more pixelated, so we'll figure that out. I do like your idea, Tommy. Tommy Mason said because the Bears are expecting a heavy dose of Dalvin Cook, Stefanski should instead use quick slants with Diggs and BC, jet sweeps, screen passes using Madison. Yeah, when it comes to slant passes too, it sucks that BB's hurt because we saw what he could do a couple weeks ago. Also, Thielen is a beast in the slot, so I would throw him in there. But I would like to see more of a BC, and I hope to God we don't see any Treadwell. I'll just leave it at that. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you guys at halftime and after the game. But I'm going to be hopping over to Purple PTSD and Vikings territory. We're doing our live chat right now. You guys might hear that beeping in the background. That's people commenting. So you don't need an account to do that. It's super easy to make an account. It's free to do so, but you can hop over and chat with us as the game is going. And we'll go from there. But I'll be back at halftime. Skol Vikings. Let's go get them. Should be a good game.